50 bikers were ready to start their engines when a tiny girl ran between the motorcycles screaming, "Don't start your bikes!" They almost ignored her, but what the 4-year-old revealed next was absolutely shocking. But no one imagined what would come next. The Desert Rose Motel sat on Highway 95 in the middle of nowhere, Nevada, a strip of faded pink buildings surrounded by sand, sagebrush, and endless sky. It was the kind of place where travelers stopped out of necessity, not choice. Cheap rooms, questionable plumbing, but the air conditioning worked and the beds were clean enough. At 6:30 a.m. on a scorching July morning, the parking lot was filled with 50 Harley-Davidson motorcycles, the Brotherhood MC on their annual ride from Los Angeles to Sturgis. They were an impressive sight. Men ranging from their 40s to 70s, leather vests covered in patches, chrome gleaming in the early sun. Robert Kodiak Brennan, 60 years old and president of the Brotherhood MC, finished loading his saddlebag and stretched his back. It had been a long ride yesterday, and his body reminded him he wasn't 20 anymore. Around him, his brothers were doing the same, checking bikes, adjusting gear, preparing for another 8 hours on the road. "Mount up in 5!" Kodiak called out, his voice carrying authority earned through decades of leadership. "We got a schedule to keep." The bikers moved toward their motorcycles, keys in hand. Kodiak walked to his custom 2020 Road King, running his hand over the gas tank with the affection of a man who'd ridden this machine through 20 states. He inserted the key and was about to turn it when he heard something that made him freeze. "Stop! Don't start your bikes!" And the voice was high-pitched, desperate, and completely out of place. Every head turned toward the source. A little girl, couldn't have been more than 4 years old, was running toward them from the direction of the motel office. She wore pink pajamas with unicorns on them, her black hair flying behind her, her small face twisted with terror. "Don't start them! Please don't start them!" She was crying now, stumbling over her own feet in her panic. Kodiak pulled his key from the ignition and stepped away from his bike. The other bikers did the same, looking at each other in confusion. Some laughed nervously, others looked annoyed at the interruption. "What the hell?" muttered Snake, Kodiak's VP. "Where'd this kid come from?" The little girl reached them and stopped, gasping for breath, tears streaming down her face. She was terrified, not just scared, but absolutely petrified. And Kodiak, who'd raised 3 daughters and had 6 grandchildren, recognized genuine terror when he saw it. He knelt down to her level, making himself less intimidating. "Hey there, sweetheart. What's wrong? Why shouldn't we start our bikes?" The girl looked up at him with huge brown eyes filled with tears. "Because the bad man put something in them. In the night, I saw him. He said they would go boom, like a bomb. He said boom and laughed." A cold sensation crawled up Kodiak's spine. "What bad man, honey? Where's your mama?" "Mama works here. She cleans rooms. I live here in room 3. I was looking out the window because I couldn't sleep, and I saw the bad man. He was doing something to all the motorcycles. He had a bag and tools, and he opened parts and put things inside. It took him a long time, all night almost." Kodiak exchanged glances with Snake. The VP's expression had gone from annoyed to deadly serious. If what this kid was saying was true, if someone had actually sabotaged their bikes, they'd just been seconds away from disaster. "Bear," Kodiak called to their club's mechanic, a man who could take apart and rebuild an engine blindfolded. "Get over here. We need to check something." Bear approached, wiping grease from his hands. He was a massive man, 6'6", built like his namesake, with 30 years of experience as a motorcycle mechanic. "What's up, boss?" "Minnie, this little girl says someone tampered with our bikes last night. Says they put something inside them, something that would go boom." Bear's face went pale. He looked at the child, then at the rows of motorcycles. "You serious?" "Dead serious. Check them. Start with mine." Bear knelt beside Kodiak's Road King and began a careful inspection. The other bikers had gathered around now, all pretense of humor gone. If someone had sabotaged 50 motorcycles, this wasn't a prank. This was attempted murder. After 5 minutes, Bear sat back on his heels, his face gray. "Boss, you need to see this." Kodiak looked where Bear was pointing. Attached to the bike's ignition system, hidden behind the cover plate, was a small device, wires, a battery pack, and what looked like a small explosive charge. It was crude but effective. When the ignition turned on, it would have detonated. "Jesus Christ," Snake breathed. "That would have killed you, Kodiak. Probably anyone standing nearby, too." Kodiak felt ice in his veins. He'd been seconds away from turning that key, so had 49 other men, if this little girl hadn't warned them. He turned back to the child, who was still standing there crying, clearly traumatized by the adult's reactions. "Sweetheart, what's your name?" "Emma," she whispered. "Emma Rodriguez." "Emma, you just saved my life. You saved all our lives. You're a hero, you understand? A real hero." Within minutes, the mood in the Desert Rose Motel parking lot had transformed from casual morning departure to military-grade crisis response. Kodiak had immediately called 911, and the Nevada State Police were en route. But more urgently, Bear and 3 other mechanics were carefully checking every single motorcycle in the lot. The news got worse with each inspection. 18 bikes had been sabotaged. Not all of them, but enough. The devices were all the same, crude but deadly, designed to detonate when the ignition engaged. If those 18 riders had started their bikes simultaneously, we'd be looking at multiple fatalities, Bear said quietly to Kodiak. "These aren't sophisticated, but they don't need to be. Small explosive charge right next to the gas tank. That's enough to cause a chain reaction. The whole parking lot would have gone up." Kodiak felt rage building in his chest, cold, controlled rage that was far more dangerous than hot anger. Someone had tried to murder his brothers. Someone had planted bombs on their motorcycles while they slept. Emma sat on a bench outside the motel office, wrapped in a blanket despite the desert heat. Her mother had been located, Maria Rodriguez, a woman in her 30s who worked as the motel's housekeeper. She was holding Emma tightly, rocking her, both of them crying. Kodiak approached them gently. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm Robert Brennan. Your daughter saved our lives this morning. I need to ask her some questions, if that's okay. The police will want to know too, but I'd like to hear it first." Maria looked up at him with red eyes. "Emma said she saw a man. She woke me up crying, saying the motorcycle men were going to die. I thought she had a nightmare. I almost didn't believe her. I'm very glad she insisted," Kodiak said. He knelt in front of Emma again. "Emma, I know you're scared, but you're safe now. All these big guys here. We're going to make sure nobody hurts you or your mama, but I need you to tell me about the bad man. Can you do that?" Emma nodded, wiping her nose on the blanket. "He came in a truck, a white truck. It was dark, but the parking lot lights were on. I was awake because it's too hot and I was thirsty. I saw him park the truck and get out. He looked around like he was being sneaky. Then he opened the back and got a bag and tools." "What did he look like, honey?" "Tall. He had a hat like a baseball hat and a mustache. And he walked funny like." She demonstrated a slight limp. "Like his leg hurt." "That's real good, Emma. What did he do?" "He went to the motorcycles and started opening them up, like he was fixing them. But Mama says you don't fix things in the middle of the night when people are sleeping. He kept looking at the motel like he was worried someone would see. It took him a long time. He did lots of motorcycles, and when he was done, he laughed. He said boom, really quiet, and laughed and drove away." Kodiak felt his jaw clench. This wasn't random vandalism. This was calculated, deliberate attempted mass murder. "Did you see which way he drove?" Emma pointed toward the highway. "That way, toward the mountains." Snake appeared at Kodiak's shoulder. "Boss, you need to see something. We found it in the dumpster behind the motel." They walked to the dumpster, leaving Maria to comfort Emma. Inside, partially covered by garbage bags, was evidence of the sabotage. Wire cutters, electrical tape, empty boxes that had contained detonators, and a receipt. Kodiak picked up the receipt carefully with a napkin. It was from a hardware store in Las Vegas, dated 3 days ago. Multiple purchases, wire, batteries, electrical components. and at the bottom, a partial credit card number and a name, D. Sutton. "We know anyone named Sutton?" Kodiak asked. "Not off the top of my head," Snake said. "But someone wanted us dead, Kodiak. All of us. This wasn't targeting one person. This was meant to take out the entire club." "Or send a message," added Reaper, the club's sergeant-at-arms. "What better way to scare motorcycle clubs than blowing up 50 riders at once?" Kodiak thought about that. The Brotherhood MC wasn't a criminal organization. They were a legitimate riding club, mostly veterans and working-class guys who loved motorcycles. They didn't deal drugs, didn't run guns, didn't get involved in territory wars with other clubs. So why would someone target them? Unless... "The motel," Kodiak said suddenly. "This place. We stayed here last year too, didn't we? Same route, same stop." Snake nodded slowly. "Yeah, and the year before that. We've been coming here for 5 years running. Same time every summer, heading to Sturgis. So someone knew we'd be here. Someone planned this in advance, knowing our route, knowing where we'd stop." Kodiak looked at the Desert Rose Motel, the faded pink buildings, the flickering neon sign, the office with its barred windows. "We need to talk to the owner." The motel owner was a man named Frank Delacroix, mid-50s, with the look of someone who'd been living in the desert too long. He came out of the office looking nervous when he saw the assembled bikers and heard the approaching police sirens. "What's going on? What's all this commotion?" Kodiak walked up to him, every inch of his 6'2" frame radiating controlled menace. "Someone sabotaged our motorcycles last night, Mr. Delacroix. Put bombs on them." "Were you here last night?" "Bombs? That's crazy. I don't know anything about—" "Answer the question. Were you here?" Frank Delacroix's eyes darted nervously between Kodiak and the growing crowd of bikers. I was here until about 10 p.m. Then I went home. I live in town, about 15 miles away. I come back in the morning to open up." "Who else has access to this property at night?" Kodiak demanded. "Just Maria, the housekeeper. She lives on site in room 3 with her daughter, and the night clerk, Danny, but he quit last week. Haven't replaced him yet." "Security cameras?" "We got one over the office door, but it's been broken for months. Haven't had the money to fix it." Convenient, Kodiak thought. Very convenient. "You know anyone named D. Sutton?" Frank's face changed, just for a second, a flicker of recognition before he controlled it. But Kodiak had been reading people for 60 years. That reaction told him everything. "Never heard of him," Frank said, but his voice was too quick, too defensive. Snake stepped forward. "Funny thing, Frank. We found evidence in your dumpster, bomb-making materials, receipt with a name on it. And now we're going to wait here for the state police to arrive, and they're going to ask you the same questions. Only they've got ways of making people tell the truth." "I don't know what you're talking about." "This is my motel. I run a legitimate business." "Then you won't mind if we search the office," Kodiak said. It wasn't a question. "You can't do that without a warrant. Then we'll wait for the cops and let them do it. But you standing here acting guilty isn't helping your case, Frank." The Nevada State Police arrived 10 minutes later, 3 patrol cars and a bomb squad van from Las Vegas. Lieutenant Sarah Morrison, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor, took control of the scene immediately. "Someone want to tell me what we've got here?" she asked. Kodiak explained everything. Emma's warning, the devices found on 18 motorcycles, the evidence in the dumpster, Frank's suspicious behavior. Lieutenant Morrison listened carefully, her expression growing grimmer. "Bomb squad, start with the motorcycles. Check every single one, photograph everything, handle it like the crime scene it is." She turned to Frank. "Mr. Delacroix, I'm going to need to search your office and your property. You can consent, or I can get a warrant in about 20 minutes. Your choice." "I consent," Frank said quickly. Too quickly. The search of the office took 15 minutes. What they found changed everything. In the locked drawer in Frank's desk, cash, lots of it, bundles of $100 bills totaling about $50,000. In a closet, packages of methamphetamine, maybe 10 pounds worth. And in a safe hidden behind a painting, Documents showing the Desert Rose Motel was a front for a drug distribution operation run by a man named Dominic Sutton. Lieutenant Morrison emerged from the office holding evidence bags. "Frank Delacroix, you're under arrest for drug trafficking, conspiracy, and about a dozen other charges we'll add once we finish processing this scene." As Frank was being cuffed and read his rights, he finally cracked. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," Dominic said. "We just needed to scare them off, make them stop coming here. The bikers were too visible, too much attention, bad for business. He said he'd handle it. Handle it by blowing up 50 people? Kodiak's voice was ice. "I didn't know about the bombs. I swear, I thought he was just going to slash some tires or something. When I found out what he'd done, I tried to call him off, but he wouldn't answer." "Where is Dominic Sutton now?" Lieutenant Morrison demanded. "I don't know. He's got a compound out past Boulder City, but he moves around. He's paranoid, thinks everyone's out to get him." Lieutenant Morrison looked at Kodiak. "I'm going to need statements from all of you. And that little girl, Emma Rodriguez, she's going to need to be interviewed by a child specialist. Her testimony is crucial." "She's 4 years old," Kodiak said. "She's traumatized. She saved 50 lives, and now she's terrified." "I understand. We'll be as gentle as possible. But Mr. Brennan, I need you to understand something. Dominic Sutton is dangerous. If he finds out his plan failed, if he knows that little girl witnessed him, she and her mother are in danger." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Maria Rodriguez, who'd been sitting with Emma throughout all of this, heard them and went pale. "What are you saying? We're not safe?" "Ma'am, I'm saying we're going to put you in protective custody until we locate Sutton, for your safety and Emma's." "Protective custody?" Maria's voice rose in panic. "For how long? I have a job. Emma has to start preschool next month. We can't just disappear." Kodiak made a decision. "Lieutenant Morrison, with all respect, I've got a better idea. The Brotherhood MC can protect them. We've got a clubhouse in Southern California with security, with men who know how to handle situations like this. Maria and Emma come with us. Stay at the clubhouse until Sutton is caught." "Absolutely not," Lieutenant Morrison said. "I can't allow civilians to—" "You can't stop them either," Kodiak interrupted. "Maria's not under arrest. She's free to go where she wants. And I'm telling you, a police safe house with 2 guards is no match for what we can provide. 50 bikers, 24-hour security, and a facility designed to keep people safe. Your job is to catch Sutton. Our job is to keep Emma and her mama alive while you do it." Lieutenant Morrison looked like she wanted to argue, but she was also pragmatic enough to see the logic. She looked at Maria. "Mrs. Rodriguez, it's your choice. Police protective custody, or go with them." Maria looked at Kodiak, this big, intimidating biker who'd been nothing but gentle with her daughter. Then she looked at Emma, who was holding tight to the blanket, and looking at Kodiak like he was a superhero. "Emma," Maria asked quietly, "do you trust these men?" Emma nodded vigorously. "They're nice, Mama. They listen. They believe me. The big one," she pointed at Kodiak, "he has kind eyes, like Daddy had." Maria's eyes filled with tears. Emma's father had died 3 years ago, killed in a construction accident. Since then, it had been just the 2 of them, struggling to survive, moving from job to job, place to place. "Okay," Maria whispered. "We'll go with you." Kodiak nodded. "Pack what you need. We roll in 30 minutes. The ride from Nevada to Southern California took 8 hours. Maria and Emma rode in a support van, driven by Bear's wife Gloria, who'd been called to help. The 50 bikers formed a protective convoy around the van, front, back, and sides. If Dominic Sutton tried anything on the highway, he'd have to go through them first. Emma fell asleep within the first hour, exhausted from the trauma and adrenaline of the morning. Maria sat beside her daughter, watching the desert landscape roll by, trying to process how her life had changed in a single day. Gloria, a kind woman in her 50s who'd been married to Bear for 30 years, glanced at Maria in the rearview mirror. "You doing okay back there, honey?" "I don't know what I'm doing," Maria admitted. "This morning I was a housekeeper at a drug motel. I didn't know it was a drug motel." Now I'm in witness protection with a motorcycle club because my 4-year-old daughter stopped a mass murder. Emma's an amazing little girl, Gloria said. Do you know how much courage it took for her to run up to 50 scary-looking bikers and tell them to stop? Most adults wouldn't have that kind of bravery. Nah, she's always been protective, Maria said softly. Ever since her father died, she's been watching over me, like she thinks she has to be the parent now. She's 4 years old, and she worries about whether I'm eating enough, whether I'm sad. It's not fair. Life rarely is, Gloria agreed, but you're doing something right, Maria. That child has a good heart, because you raised her with one. They arrived at the Brotherhood MC clubhouse just after 6 p.m. The compound was in the high desert outside San Bernardino, a fortified property with high walls, security gates, and a main building that looked more like a fortress than a clubhouse. Inside the walls were living quarters, a garage, a meeting hall, and enough space for the entire club to gather. Kodiak showed Maria and Emma to a private room on the second floor, clean, comfortable, with its own bathroom. It was nicer than any place Maria had lived in years. You're safe here, Kodiak said. Windows are reinforced, doors have double locks, and there's always someone on guard. Nobody gets in without us knowing. Emma was clinging to her mother, exhausted and overwhelmed. Are the bad men going to find us? She asked in a tiny voice. Kodiak knelt down to her level again. Emma, I'm going to tell you the truth because you're a brave girl who deserves honesty. The bad man might try to find you, but if he does, he's going to have to go through 50 of the toughest guys you've ever seen, and we're not going to let him hurt you. That's a promise. Like superheroes? Emma asked. Exactly like superheroes. Except we ride motorcycles instead of flying. That night, the Brotherhood MC held an emergency meeting. All 50 members gathered in the main hall, along with several other chapters who'd driven in when they heard what happened. Kodiak stood at the front of the room, his face grim. Brothers, we've got a situation. Dominic Sutton tried to kill us all. He failed, thanks to a 4-year-old girl. Now he's in the wind, and as long as he's out there, Emma and Maria are in danger. The police are looking for him, but they've got limited resources. We've got something they don't. Brothers in every state, eyes everywhere, and a network that can find people who don't want to be found. What are you proposing? Asked Reaper. I'm proposing we find Sutton before he finds Emma. We use our contacts, our connections, our brothers across the country. We track him down, and we deliver him to the police, alive because we're not murderers, but delivered. And we make sure everyone knows that anyone who touches that little girl or her mother answers to us. Snake stood up. I'm in. That kid saved my life. I owe her. One by one, every member of the Brotherhood MC stood. Not just the 50 who'd been at the Desert Rose Motel, but the additional 30 who'd come from other chapters. 80 bikers, all committed to protecting a 4-year-old girl they'd just met. Over the next 3 days, the network activated. Brotherhood MC had chapters in 15 states, with connections to dozens of other clubs. The word went out. Dominic Sutton. Descriptions, last known locations, vehicle information, everything. Within 48 hours, they had a lead. Sutton had been spotted in Arizona near the Mexican border. He was preparing to run, to disappear into Mexico where extradition would be difficult. But he'd made a mistake. He'd stopped at a truck stop where one of the employees was the cousin of a Brotherhood member. Kodiak got the call at 2 a.m. on the third night. He immediately contacted Lieutenant Morrison, who coordinated with Arizona authorities. Within hours, a joint task force was moving on Sutton's location. The arrest happened at dawn. Dominic Sutton, attempting to cross the border with fake documents and a truck full of cash and drugs, was surrounded by local police, state troopers, and federal agents. He tried to run, was tackled, and arrested without shots fired. When Kodiak got the confirmation call, he immediately went to tell Maria. She was in the clubhouse kitchen, helping Gloria prepare breakfast. Emma was coloring at the table, guarded by 3 bikers who'd appointed themselves her personal protection detail. They got him, Kodiak said. Sutton's in custody. He's not getting out. They're charging him with attempted murder, terrorism, drug trafficking. He's looking at life in prison. Maria's legs gave out, and she sat down hard on a kitchen chair. "It's really over? It's really over. You're safe. Emma's safe." Emma looked up from her coloring. "The bad man can't hurt us anymore." "The bad man is going to jail for a very, very long time," Kodiak assured her. What happened next surprised everyone. Emma got up from her chair, walked over to Kodiak and hugged his leg, the only part of him she could reach at her height. "Thank you for protecting us," she said. "You're my hero." To Kodiak, who'd kept his composure through combat, loss, and decades of hard living, felt tears sting his eyes. He picked Emma up gently and held her. "You're the hero, little one. You saved 50 lives. We just returned the favor." Over the next few days, the full story came out through police investigations and Sutton's confession. The Desert Rose Motel had been a drug distribution hub for 3 years. Sutton had gotten increasingly paranoid about law enforcement, and the annual visit from the Brotherhood MC, 50 bikers, highly visible, often chatting with local police, made him nervous. He decided to eliminate what he perceived as a threat by killing them all, making it look like a motorcycle malfunction. He'd spent weeks planning it, learning about motorcycle engines, buying components, watching YouTube videos on how to make explosive devices. The night of the sabotage, Frank Delacroix had been in on it initially, but lost his nerve when he realized Sutton was actually going to kill people. By then, it was too late to stop it. If Emma hadn't been awake, looking out her window, witnessing the sabotage, and having the courage to warn the bikers, 50 men would have died in a coordinated explosion that would have made national news. Lieutenant Morrison called Kodiak a week after the arrest. "Mr. Brennan, I wanted you to know that the district attorney is recommending Emma Rodriguez for a civilian commendation. What she did was extraordinary. Also, the reward money from the FBI's drug task force. There was a standing reward for information leading to Sutton's arrest. That money goes to Emma and her mother. It's $50,000. Kodiak was quiet for a moment. $50,000? Yes, it'll be put in a trust for Emma until she's 18, but Maria can access some of it for immediate needs, housing, education, whatever they need. When Kodiak told Maria, she broke down crying. $50,000, that's more money than I've seen in my entire life. Emma can go to college. We can get a real home. I can stop working 2 jobs. You deserve it, Kodiak said, both of you. But Maria, I need to ask you something. What are you going to do now? You can't go back to the Desert Rose Motel, obviously. Where will you go? Maria looked around the clubhouse that had been her home for the past week. Emma had thrived here. The bikers had spoiled her, teaching her about motorcycles, letting her draw pictures on their arms with washable markers, treating her like a beloved niece. And Maria herself had felt safer here than anywhere in years. "I don't know," she admitted. "I don't have family, no ties anywhere. I've been drifting since my husband died, just trying to survive." "What if you didn't have to drift anymore?" Kodiak asked. "What if you had a home base, a community, people who'd watch your back?" "What are you saying?" "I'm saying the Brotherhood takes care of its own, and you and Emma are ours now. We've got connections all over Southern California. We can help you find a job, a place to live, get Emma into a good school. You won't be alone anymore." Maria looked at this man who'd shown her and her daughter such kindness. "Why would you do all this? You barely know us." "Because your daughter saved my life," Kodiak said simply. "Because you're raising an amazing kid who had the courage to do the right thing even when she was terrified. Because in my club, family isn't just blood. It's who shows up when you need them. And you need us, so we're showing up." 2 months later, Maria and Emma moved into a small house in Riverside, California. Nothing fancy, but safe, clean, in a good neighborhood. Maria had a job at a local hospital in the housekeeping department with benefits and decent pay. Emma was enrolled in preschool, where she immediately made friends and became known as the girl who saved the bikers. The Brotherhood MC visited regularly. Kodiak became like a grandfather to Emma, teaching her about courage, honor, and standing up for what's right. On her 5th birthday, the entire club showed up with presents, cake, and a custom-made children's motorcycle helmet with her name on it. "For when you're old enough to ride," Kodiak told her, ruffling her hair. "I want to be a biker when I grow up," Emma declared, "and protect people like you do." "You already are protecting people," Kodiak said. "You've been doing it since you were 4 years old." 5 years passed. Emma was now 9 years old, thriving in school, confident and brave. She still remembered that morning at the Desert Rose Motel, how terrified she'd been, how she'd almost not warned the bikers because they looked so scary. But she'd done it anyway, and in doing so, had changed her life and her mother's forever. Maria had been promoted to supervisor at the hospital. She'd gone back to school part-time, working on a nursing degree. The $50,000 in Emma's trust fund was carefully managed, growing through investments secured for her college education. But more than the money, more than the stability, what mattered most was the family they'd found. The Brotherhood MC had become exactly that, family. They celebrated birthdays and holidays together. They helped each other through hard times. They showed up. On the 5th anniversary of that morning in Nevada, the Brotherhood MC held a special memorial ride. 50 motorcycles, the same 50 that had been targeted, rode from San Bernardino to the Desert Rose Motel, which had been shut down and was now abandoned. They rode in formation, with Emma sitting on the back of Kodiak's bike, her first real ride, wearing her custom helmet and grinning with pure joy. At the motel, they held a small ceremony. Lieutenant Morrison was there, now retired but still in touch with the case. The local police chief came, and several news crews, because the story of the little girl who saved 50 bikers had become something of a legend. 5 years ago, Kodiak said, addressing the crowd, a 4-year-old girl had a choice. She could stay quiet, stay safe, not get involved with the scary-looking men in leather. Or she could run out in her pajamas and warn us that someone was trying to kill us. She chose courage. She chose to act. And 50 families still have their fathers, brothers, sons, husbands because of that choice. He turned to Emma, who stood beside him looking much older than 9, but still with those same kind, brave eyes. "Emma Rodriguez, you've been awarded the FBI Director's Community Leadership Award, multiple commendations from law enforcement agencies, and the gratitude of every person in the Brotherhood MC. But more than any of that, you've earned something else. Respect. The respect of men who don't give it easily. The respect of people who know courage when they see it." The Brotherhood MC members all raised their fists in salute, their highest honor. And Emma, surrounded by 50 bikers who'd become her extended family, smiled with tears in her eyes. Later, as they prepared to ride back, Emma asked Kodiak, "Do you think if it happened again, I'd still be brave enough to do it?" Kodiak knelt down to her level, something he'd been doing for 5 years now. "Emma, courage isn't something you use up. It's something you build. Every time you choose to do the right thing, even when you're scared, you get stronger. You've got more courage at 9 years old than most people develop in a lifetime." "Because you taught me," Emma said. "No," Kodiak corrected gently. "We just showed you what you already had inside. You were brave before you ever met us. We just gave you a safe place to keep being brave." That evening, at the Brotherhood Clubhouse, they held a barbecue, a celebration of life, of family, of the strange and wonderful ways that people could save each other. Emma ran around with the other children of club members, playing and laughing. Maria sat with the other partners and spouses, no longer the outsider, but fully part of the community. And Kodiak, watching it all, felt something he hadn't felt in decades: complete peace. He'd spent his life riding, fighting, surviving. He'd seen war and loss and hardship. But in the end, what mattered most was this: a little girl in pink pajamas who'd run toward danger instead of away from it, who'd trusted strangers when she had every reason not to, who'd saved 50 lives with 3 simple words: don't start your bikes. 10 years later, Emma Rodriguez graduated high school with honors. She'd been accepted to several universities with full scholarships. At her graduation, surrounded by her mother and 50 bikers in their best leather, she gave a speech. "When I was 4 years old," she said, "I learned the most important lesson of my life, that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right even when you're terrified. I looked out a window and saw something wrong, and I had a choice. Ignore it or act. I chose to act, and that choice gave me a family I never expected. The Brotherhood MC taught me about honor, loyalty, and what it really means to protect people. Now I'm going to college to study criminal justice. I want to be a police officer and eventually maybe FBI. I want to spend my life protecting people, just like the bikers protected me and my mom." In the audience, Kodiak, now 70 years old, grey beard longer, face more weathered but eyes still sharp, felt tears rolling down his face. He wasn't ashamed. This girl, this amazing young woman, had saved his life when she was 4 years old. Now she was going to spend her life saving others. After the ceremony, Emma found Kodiak and hugged him tight. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for believing me, for protecting us, for being my family." "Thank you," Kodiak replied, "for reminding us why we wear these patches, for showing us that sometimes the bravest warriors come in the smallest packages, for being you." And as the sun set over Southern California, 50 motorcycles fired up their engines, checked, secured, safe, and rode into the evening, their rumble echoing like thunder. At the front rode Kodiak, and behind him, on her own small motorcycle now that she was 18, rode Emma Rodriguez. The little girl who'd stopped 50 bikers from starting their engines had grown up, and now she rode with them. Not as someone they protected, but as one of them, a guardian, a protector, a hero. Because sometimes courage starts with a 4-year-old in pink pajamas, running toward danger and screaming a warning. And sometimes that moment of courage echoes through decades, changing lives, building families, and proving that the smallest voices can carry the most important messages. Don't start your bikes. 3 words that saved 50 lives. 3 words that built a family. 3 words that proved heroes come in all sizes, and courage has no age limit.